would be helpful. In other words, our nutrients enter to our body and turn on and off gene through epigenetic switch. So if you can eat a good food, good nutrients, they can modify good pattern of epigenetic status and a good way for the gene expression. I keep on talking about the prenatal or the Mabuchi mouse model, and you heard about the importance of nutrition previously. So epidemiology studies indicate that impaired nutrition growth and development are associated with higher risk of cardiovascular disease and diabetes and osteoporosis and other life offspring. And our main candidate mechanism by which in utero and early life condition affect health and disease, epigenetic mechanism including DNA methylation highlighted, and inadequate establishment of DNA methylation patterns by insufficient maternal diet, and such as local diet, may induce pediatric developmental disease and affect the health of the life. I'm mainly working on the cancer, so I will give you some examples of food and cancer prevention. So the most recent international report on cancer prevention found that 30% to 40% of all cancers are directly associated and linked to the food we eat. This is also that diet is responsible for 80% of cancers of colon and breast and prostate. When I was in Korea, I was a gastroenterologist. I take care of liver cancer, colon cancer, and stomach cancer patients. But I found that the treatment is so limited. So what I found is this kind of prevention is better than the treatment. So I decided in my mind that to study to prevent cancer with our diet. So because of this 80%. But I think it's too much, not that much, 80%. Anyway, in the Western medicine is more focused on the treatment rather than the prevention. That preventive remedies are mainly nutrients, such as vitamins, because those are safer and more physiological. So I studied nutrition and prevention. So anyway, I'll ask you the question that can you prevent cancer with our diet and food? I answer you that yes, but no single food or no single foods, single food substance can protect you against cancer. You can understand that because we need all different types of nutrients. The minerals, vitamins, and phytochemicals in plant food work together to provide cancer protection. And those are low energy dense, so low calorie, and you can avoid weight gain. You know, currently in Western country, in the United States, the obesity is the big problem. The $147 billion are spent every year to fight against obesity, and 36% of Americans are already obese, 26%. And recently, the obesity rate is increasing 30%. And obesity is associated with increasing risk of diabetes, hypertension, cardiovascular disease, and cancer. So we need certain less energy dense food like vegetable food, pork, and beans. So mice do not develop tumors spontaneously. But I gave Western style diet to the mouse year and a half and to see what happened. The Western style diet means increasing fat content and decreasing calcium and vitamin D and fiber like this. When I compare the control group, Western style diet is 4 times higher than fat and higher calorie, and Yes, this mouse shows obesity. What happened is, when I gave the Western style animal shows that they developed colony tumor. They never developed in a natural condition. But when I gave this Western style diet, they developed colony tumor. The control diet. So we said that because most of cancer studies using genetically engineering model or chemical carcinogen. Because the data is so strong, but they is different from the human cancer. But that is diet by itself. So, because I worked on the folate, I mentioned some folate and cancer study. The epidemiology study suggests that diminished folate status is associated with the increased risk of cancer, such as colon cancer. So researchers simply think of that. Oh yeah, so low folate status increase the risk of colon cancer. So if you give high supplementation of folate, we could reduce the risk of this cancer, right? So this is a double-blind placebo-controlled randomized clinical trial. This is also an important endpoint. And then the participants was 1,000 people. For 3 years, they give the folate and see their adenoma. Adenoma is a treatment of colon cancer. So what they found is there's no effect of folic acid supplementation. So they did a second round. So 600 participants underwent second follow-up. What they found is that when they gave folate, the incidence of at least one advanced lesion was 11.6% for folic acid group, 6.9% for less group. So supplementation of folate rather increased the recurrent risk of adenoma, and is associated with higher risk of having 3 or more adenoma. So the conclusion is this supplementation 1 milligram is 2.5 times higher than the basic. So does not reduce cardiac arrhythmias. And we need to study how the supplementation may increase the risk of it. So to the mouse, not the poor mouse, I always give to the same things to mouse. I'm also working on the cell culture human study, but I only worked to human study. To the mouse, we give different level of folate. So 2 milligram is the basic requirement for the mouse, and 2 milligram folic acid will be folate deficiency, and 8 milligram will be 4 times higher than the requirement. And then I harvested the animal at 12 weeks and measured it. Because folate is needed for the DNA synthesis. And then they use needed for scientifically. But when folate metabolism is common, the uracil is missing incorporated into the DNA where thiamidinate should be. And then we think that uracil could be, increased uracil could be the cause of cancer, a kind of. So when I measured it, because you didn't have this one, this is unpublished data. Folate supplementation rather increased the uracil missing incorporation compared to folate depleted working. We expect that if you're giving the supplementation in a single systemic form in a pill, rather interfere the normal metabolism and rather push their body to that mutagen. We can think about the B vitamins and cardiovascular disease. Homocysteine is regarded as a risk factor for the cardiovascular disease, and folate and B12, B6 are major determinants of homocysteine. So people simply think that, oh yeah, if you give folate and B12, B6 to the people, then we can reduce the risk of cardiovascular disease. So they did this full study. 5,000 people. In 4 or 5 years, they received the folic acid and B12 in a pill. And then they decreased the homocysteine level. But as compared to the placebo group, placebo is a fake one that doesn't contain it. Active treatment did not significantly decrease the risk of death from cardiovascular causes or myocardial infarction. Look at this. The risk is the same thing. To the 5,000 people, they gave 3 vitamins for 5 years. They couldn't reduce the risk of it. The Nordic study, they are published back-to-back in the New Journal. They used 4,000 people. They also give folic acid like this. What they found is this is placebo group. B6 only or folic acid B12 group are the same risk. But the group who took folic acid and B12 or B6 has higher risk. This is rather harmful. If you give such nutrients in a high dose in a pill, like a drug, I call it dead chemical. It's too harmful to our body. The same thing, selenium. Selenium is antioxidant, right? And we expect that selenium could reduce the risk of diabetes mellitus. But for the recent trial, around 1,200 patients, they give selenium and placebo, and 7 years follow-up, they found that selenium supplementation rather increase the risk of diabetes rather than the placebo. So leave me alone. Why do you give this supplementation and make us more sick? All the problem is pure food. So we have to go, when we want to prevent the disease, we have to do it with food, not with pill. A population study demonstrates the risk of lung cancer is inversely associated with dietary folate. Dietary folate is associated with the risk of lung cancer, but not with intake of fortified folate or supplemented folate or total folate. Total folate means dietary folate plus supplemented folate. They are not associated. So supplementation with folate in a single synthetic chemical form, the folic acid might not be as effective as high folate diet, which contain more physiological forms of folate and other nutrients needed for the folate metabolism. Same thing when I do the B6, you and I collaborated. The total B6 intake is not associated with colorectal cancer, only dietary intake is associated. And for the non-Hodgkin cancer lymphoma, total vitamin B6 is not associated, but inversely associated with dietary vitamin B6. Only nutritious food is effective. So each nutrient could be effective, but the delivery is wrong. That's why it is not effective. So we have to deliver our nutrients through food, not the high megadose supplementation. So then how we recommend the diet? It's very hard to do that because we still need to study about this. But the thing is, basic understanding is this. Overt nutritional deficiencies such as melaloblastic anemia, scurvy, variability, or some disease. This is very common in the worldwide, but it is extremely rare in developed countries. I think that Thailand, you cannot find this deficiency because the food is so good. But it appears that the prevalence of subclinical or marginal deficiencies is higher than expected. So you look at nutrition defined, but when you check it, it's marginal. So Since these deficiencies are major risk factors for chronic disease such as cancer, cardiovascular disease, and neurodegenerative disorder, the interest of modern nutrition has been shifted from preventing over to deficiency to decreasing the risk of chronic disease. So I'm going to introduce a certain diet recommendation. The dietary guideline for is from the USDA. So it's broad, it's not specific, but consume a sufficient amount of fruit and vegetables. Yeah, fruit and vegetable has a lot of nutrients and to fruit compounds. But I already told you that all nutrients are not created. All fruits and vegetables are not created. We need all different types. So choose a variety of fruit and vegetables. So if you only eat certain fruits and vegetables, will not be effective. So different, like green, oranges, and consume more whole grain products, and consume their dairy products, like milk or cheese, because they have many different types of nutrients. And choose low fat on lean meat and poultry. Very are your choices is more fish, beans, cheese, nuts, and seeds. I could find all these things from the Thai in yesterday. So we usually recommend this. Nobody recommends this. For the dinner table. This is part of the food for to prevent cancer. This is part of the food to prevent cardiovascular disease. This is very for the diabetes. This is part for prevention of liver disease. No, we don't need it. We need one dinner, good enough to prevent all these diseases. So guideline for the recommendation for the cancer prevention could prevent cancer as well as heart disease. So this is your homework. This is because I already gave you all the recommendations. So read it at home. We need to control the body fat. We need physical activity because our nutrients interact with physical activity too. So without the physical activity, we cannot get a huge effect of nutrients. We need physical activity to prevent cancer. We also need, and we should be limit consumption of energy thanks to sugar. You see this order. It has power sugar. I think that the congressman has started to make a new law to give more tax for the high sugar diet food. The consumption of energy-dense food and sugar is increasing worldwide, and this probably contributes to the global food insecurity. And usually, most of plant origin, and meat. Many foods of animal origin are nourishing and healthy if consumed in moderate amounts. If you eat them, if they are not healthy, you should have it back, but still need meat can be a better source of nutrition, protein, iron, but still we receive and take it very. There are so many controls for the alcohol. Certain cancer, if you drink alcohol, increase the risk. Certain cancer, if you drink alcohol, reduce the risk. So the alcohol also reduces the risk of coronary heart disease. So we cannot easily say, oh, drink alcohol or not. But the best thing is moderation is most important. And food preservation after the risk of storm. And usually diet supplementation is not recommended by the WHO, and our aim to meet the nutrition needs through diet alone. So now this is whole food are not simply food ingredients. They carry characteristics that express energy, that also shape recently, the most highlighted institution the newly entered climate solutions and biological components interact with genetic and environmental factors and alter the expression of critical genes, thereby affecting the physiology and pathology processes in the body. And collectively, the proper intake of food is the best way to maintain our health and prevent the diseases through the interaction with genetic and environmental factors. I would like to acknowledge my students and trusters and the generous support from the National Institute. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Do you have any questions? I'm sure a lot of people have jotted down the details of what to eat and what not to eat, and you get a lot of interesting information about what to eat. Basically, just not too much, not too little, and only need to eat more vegetables and only exercise. We walk back to Chulalongkorn University again. Right, any questions? Yes.
I've got an observation. About 10 years ago, I was studying the Buteyko breathing technique, and it was quite interesting because we needed to measure our heartbeat and the tidal volume of breathing at different intervals after every meal for 10 days. And it coincided when I was editing a magazine. We did a survey of delivery food in Bangkok. So I had a huge variety of foods that I was eating in that period, and it was very obvious that the more living the food was, the least it affected our breathing and heart rate, and the more processed or dead the food was, the more it increased our heart rate and increased the breathing tidal volume, and particularly if it's heavily protein oriented, when we're living sedentary lives and we don't need that extra protein, then that also shot up all those indicators. When we had things like Thai food and Indian food, and to some extent some things like Mediterranean foods, it didn't have a huge effect. But when we had things like classic Western fast food, it was shocking. I've not eaten a burger from any kind of chain burger store since then, because what it did to me, because I was used to seeing the effects of this, half an hour after eating a McDonald's Happy Meal of chips, a Big Mac and Coca-Cola, it increased my heart rate by 50%. It increased my tidal volume of breathing by 100%. I also was being very sensitive to how my body was reacting to things. I noticed some nausea, some headache, and some diarrhea, and poor sleep. So basically my body was rejecting that food. It was treating it as a poison. And this didn't happen after maybe a huge meal of Indian food. It didn't happen after a big spread of Thai food. But it did after all this dead food.
Thank you for your comment. I don't know, but I cannot how those diet increase the breathing problem. But one thing that I know is if you eat fat meals, they delay the gastric empty time. You feel the stomach is bloating, and then more blood goes to the stomach. So they make it more time. They take more time for the digestion. I don't know. Anyway, thank you very much. Any other questions? You are not interested in my talk? More question? Yes. If you don't ask me a question, I'm going to start a 1 hour lecture.
I was wondering if you could comment on salt intake and Thai food versus Western food that tend to have salt prepared for food processing, and perhaps what you know of any
studies the incidence of hypertension and heart rate in Thailand.
Yeah, thank you so much for the salt. And then salt is also, why I'm talking about salt in cancer is high salt can change the chemical of the carcinogen in the stomach. So nitrate and nitrate conversion. So make more, it can enhance the stomach cancer. But I don't know. We need to do this. Yeah. Could you bring that on your microphone? Yes.
Yeah, I was interested in your concept about lean meats again. Lately, I've been reading much dietary information that saturated fats are actually not only not harmful to people, especially after age 35, but beneficial, except in the case of calorie intake. So, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that I'm very cautious to give you the recommendation. Because all the things, because I already said there's such a vitamin supplementation all fail. Yes, recent study said that doesn't matter. Total calorie is important. So if you reduce the calorie, then it will be great. So low-fat diet, rather than low-fat diet, like a Mediterranean diet with olive oil could be better. So it's kind of, actually I don't know why, but could be explained later. That's why I researched the giving of such a diet to the animal. This is what happens. Thank you, Lord. Yeah, I know that it is good, and then we have to stay on this.
I'm wondering if you have done any research or are aware of any research on energy drinks such as Red Bull. Those are becoming pretty popular in Thailand right now.
Actually, my son keep on drinking before the study. I asked him to stop it, but I don't know. I really don't know about it. But it has caffeine, and it has some pentanoic acid and taurine. I don't know if you're familiar with kind of taurine. Taurine is kind of, I think Japanese people use taurine, start to use taurine for energy drink. Because there's a famous story. In the United States, we get canned food to the cat or the dog. What happens is all the cat food eats that canned meat has dilated cardiomyopathy. So the cat food researchers studied that and found that taurine is missing. The taurine is a sulfur-containing amino acid, and we can frequently find from the shell food. So after giving the taurine, then we can avoid the dilated cardiomyopathy, and then mice also the cats are allergic. So they put taurine in the energy drink. And pentanoic acid is everywhere, but it is water-soluble in vitamins, and it works for all the metabolism as a coenzyme. So they put those things in the but I think it has some addition. And so it always goes to prevent the
There'll probably be more questions, but I'm afraid we need to have a coffee break right now. So, so we shall have like 10 to 15 minutes coffee break outside, and then come back again. There will be two parallel sessions, one in this room and the other in another different room. I believe it is in Ballroom room. Okay, so please enjoy your coffee right now and take Professor Short advice to your time. Okay, thanks very much for your attention.
we have two papers in this session. The first one will be presented by Dr. Chulalongkorn. She teaches English in the English department at Thailand University. And the title of her paper is Tales from Thai Kitchens: The Use of Food Discourse in English Classroom to Create Spaces for Local Values and Critical Literacy. Okay.
Thank you so much, Ajahn Amara, for welcoming note, and thanks so much for your interest in my session. I try my best, as Ajahn Amara suggested, I have, let's say, 15 minutes for the presentation, and I try to leave the rest of the time for the question. Okay, so like Ajahn Amara just introduced, the topic of my presentation is Tales from Thai Kitchen. So it implies some story from English classroom. Okay, so firstly, let me begin by giving you some background of my study, why I'm interested in this issue. Some of you might wonder what or how English classroom or English learning and teaching had to do with Thai study. So let me give you some brief context. Usually in conventional language classroom, teacher or the supervisor who take care of the classroom usually focus on the linguistic form. In other words, usually prioritize rules, grammars, and by this way, sometimes the language classroom or English classroom often lack the important goals of promoting critical literacy, or the concept that we know that about critical thinking, that recognize or aware or promote student interest or student childhood background. So because of that, I think, and in terms of language learning, the theory and the research inform that language learning is not possible to separate it from learning cultures. In other words, we cannot learn language without learning culture. So cultures and language should go along and should go together. So, and in case of students, especially students who don't have or don't use English as a mother tongue, in other words, the term that we use ESL student, or the student who use English as a foreign language, even though English is not their mother tongue, but the research informed that these students are capable of thinking critically if they are allowed to study in the context that design and encourage them to take a critical stand toward the issue that meaningful to them. Okay, so my research focus for this time is a pilot study. Is this an investigation of the role of food narratives or the food stories relevant to student childhood, relevant to student background, and the use of this story in the English classroom context. Okay, so the aspect of my study is an investigation of the power of food, especially in the area of the food that have the narrative quality in creating some critical thinking or in other words, in creating critical literacy. The aim of my study is to investigate the way that student, how students employ or make use the food narrative or the food discourse to generate story. From that point, how food discourse build up the critical thinking, how food story, how involving in producing story foster critical thinking, self-empowerment, and lastly, how that process construct their identity or reconstruct identity. And my study mainly was grounded in the combination of the theory. The first theory is we call post-method approach. I think many of you get used to this. And the second approach is critical literacy. Both theory, I select the notion that this theory recognize and value student voices and student childhood background. In other words, in learning English or in learning language, teacher, no matter where you are, where you're from, you should not exclude social context from the classroom. So this theory informed the researcher that whenever you teach language, you should allow students to make use and utilize their childhood background, their local values, their historical background, and bring that into the classroom. And from there, students can learn and can transform themselves. And this theory, especially the critical literacy, promote the voices of learners. This approach regards language user as an agent. What do you mean by agent? Agent in this sense is an agent to learn anything they want and to produce their material that they think relevant to themselves and meaningful to themselves. Okay, so these two theoretical approach that inform my research. Let me talk a bit about critical literacy. Critical literacy is a part of the critical educational paradigm that I just talked briefly that